What's up, y'all? Down South 77 here again, and you are looking at 3 Star Draw. This is an adult oriented G.I. Joe channel where we talk about G.I. Joe and related things, mostly G.I. Joe classified. Every now and then we might dip into something different, but that's mainly what we are here to do. So I'd like to welcome you to the channel, and if you've been here before, I'd like to welcome you back to the channel. I always forget to do this until the end, so if you do like what I'm doing, I appreciate hitting that subscribe and that like button. Would help me out quite a bit. Don't like throwing that in the beginning, but I always forget to work it in somewhere else till I'm almost done. So this time I remembered. This was not a very easy list to make. We got something like 66 or 68 figures this year. I didn't count them, but that was the number I'd seen out there somewhere around in there. That is a lot of figures. And I should have started on this sooner than I did, but I still had some other figures that I needed to review that could have had a spot on this list, and I wanted to give them a fair shake. I recently did the Fire Team, I did the Ill, um, Wolf Spotter, Shadow Tracker. Those guys were out. I needed to get them reviewed so I could know whether or not I needed to put them on this list. Um, I watched a stream last night that had a lot of the big classified reviewer toy tubers in it, and was one of the best streams I've ever watched. I already watch all those guys, so seeing them interact and talk about this was very fun. Their choices are not necessarily my choices, and they won't necessarily be your choices. That's what makes this great, right? Everybody has figures they like, characters they like, don't like for whatever reason, whatever that will be. So before I get into it, I'm going to kind of run down my criteria for how I'm doing this list. First off, it is anything released that was classified or classified esque, meaning retro card, that was released between January 1st and December 31st in the United States. If you could get it one way or another in the United States in that time period, it was eligible for my list. Retro card figures, they're not classified, but they're classified. I like, I don't know. It's a weird distinction because they're not called classified, they're not numbered, but they're classified. So I gave the guys on that stream a little bit of hell last night for that, but it's they're all the same thing. They're all under one lump sum. You can't call them retro series because that's what they called the little one. So we got to call retro card series. In my review, I will include those into stuff to be considered for my list. Aside from that, it is there's only a few things that I was not able to get in hand to go over for this list, but I don't think they would have made it anyway. Maybe one. I will try to talk about that briefly at the end when I'm done. I am also going to show some runners up to my list, and I am going to show my biggest disappointment of a figure for 2023. If you have watched my videos previously, you probably have a pretty good idea which figure that's going to be. But if you haven't, don't stop and go look now because I'm going to tell you about it in just a minute. I'm going to be doing my own voiceover work probably for this when I start editing it. So try to make it kind of funny. But so let's get into it. I can't believe it's almost 2024 and I can't wait to see what they have in store for us. But for now, let's talk about 2023. Number 10, Robert Grunt Graves. There's Grunt. Grunt was released back in the summer, and Grunt is actually a figure that I paid the impatience tax on early in the summer because I liked the design of this figure so much. I really wanted to hurry up and get it in hand. Very photogenic. If you don't like this figure, I don't see how you can call yourself a G.I. Joe fan. Hope nobody takes offense to that, but this figure here is G.I. Joe. He is a grunt, just a regular old soldier, though he happens to have his own name. For the line, he's just a boots on the ground infantry soldier, a very good one. This is a perfect update on what the original Grunt was. I've kind of got him posed best I can with the laser rifle there. He does come with the M16. And of course, he also comes with the Steel Brigade helmet. He has the flip down little computer there that's got his BIOS and probably communication device. It's kind of a plain figure. He's kind of a basic figure, but he is everything that he needs to be. I love this figure as soon as I saw it, and then I got it here. I couldn't believe how good he actually looked. A lot of people were bagging on him, but I mean, man, he looks great. And then, of course, we had the whole debacle with Target with the 11.99 thing, and I actually was able to order a few. I got them for trade, mostly for trade stuff, but I did also wanted to do a couple attempts at kit bashing this figure because that's the big debate, right? Is he an army builder? Is he not? He is not, as you see him there. But if you find a way to get rid of the graves on his name tag and you use a different head sculpt, he can absolutely be an army builder. That's why he came with the Steel Brigade head. And just to show, I have another one here that I created. This was a mishmash of grunt and rock and roll. I basically took everything off, swapped their gear around, and put the Steel Brigade head on him. And there is my G.I. Joe green shirt figure. It's the only one I've done this to. I'm not big on a kit bashing, but you can do things like this with Grunt if you want to make a green shirt army. If you just want E4 Robert Graves in your collection, there he is, and there will never be a better interpretation of Grunt than this figure right here. If you don't have him, I highly recommend picking him up. Your G.I. Joe team is not complete without this figure. So Grunt comes in at number 10. Tripwire with Mike Leod Robot and Apsara the Rat. So how do you not like Tripwire? I've seen some I don't know if I'd say hate, just some dislike, I guess, or maybe for some people he's just kind of meh. He is not meh for me. This figure knocks it out of the park. He's great to go out and do pictures with. One of the first things I did when I got him. He is a deluxe figure. He is a deluxe price point, but look at all the stuff that he comes with. I have always liked the character. He was one of my favorites as a kid. He was one of the first figures I had as a kid. And as you get older, you kind of appreciate things you didn't know about as a kid, right? Like the behind the scenes guys. So this guy is an in front of the scenes guys because the column's not getting through until he gives the all clear, or maybe he's helping clear buildings, sweeping buildings, and he goes in to make sure there's no IEDs, whatever. In a modern world, that would kind of be his role, as well as ordnance disposal. This guy, they really did a fantastic job of updating the classic figure, but they give us the classic figure too. If you take all the stuff off, regular old Tripwire is under there. I've got mine geared up as a mixture of them. I like the ordnance disposal suit, and I like the classic look of the helmet and the goggles. So I kind of have mine set up. This is how he is on my shelf, minus the extra accessories. This is how he sits on my shelf with Apsara and with the robot in front of him. I think this is a fantastic set. He's very well worth the money. And if you're trying to put together, say you don't like the more futuristic take and you like the older take on Joe's, there he is. If you like kind of a OD green and muted colors, he's right there for you. If you're putting together a shelf of those types of Joe's, there he is. So if this is another figure, if you don't have him, you need him in your collection. Uh, Classified is doing what they've done with several other figures. They're making figures that might have been a little a little boring or ho hum, and taking them and bringing them up to modern specs and modern looks, and they're making characters that you might not have even liked when you were a kid fantastic. So even if you didn't like him or didn't care about him, I recommend picking him up and giving him a try. Good figure. So Tripwire comes in for me at number 9. Number 8, Cobra His Gunner. This one might not be a popular choice for some, but remember when I said I was including everything if it was released in the US in 2023? Well, this one was. This is a figure I almost did not have, so shout out to my buddy Jesse for hooking me up with that HasLab, because this figure I might not have had. I wouldn't have bought the figures separately until I could have bought a Hiss. So this is my favorite figure that come with the Hiss. Now, I still haven't opened the Mickey Mouse Cobra Commander, but that's neither here nor there. I love this figure. I love the female. I love the Hiss driver was always one of my favorite Cobras. I mentioned that in my review for the figures. It's just a very slick, sleek looking figure. They did the shiny part on the vest, the attack vest or armor, I guess, and on the helmet, and then the rest is kind of more of a matte red. And then you've got the gloss on the boots. It's just a very striking figure, and you may be thinking, well, what about the Hiss driver? It's the same figure. Well, it is, but this is a female, and the fact that they made a female version of that figure is all the more cooler to me. But she has the accessories. She carries the load for accessories with that set. I absolutely love that shotgun. That's the best shotgun in classified, in my opinion. I love the fact that she comes with that giant Mad Max ass hammer with the spikes on it. Doesn't seem to fit in the theme of the Hiss, but I don't care. You think we're going to see that repackaged later with a Dreadnought? I bet. It's where it belongs, but I'm not going to complain because she looks fantastic with it. Um, her her main rifle down there, it's okay. It's kind of mediocre, but to me, but she's never going to be holding that. That's going to be in a bag. She's either going to have the shotgun, the hammer, or the shovel, maybe the pistol, the little sidearm she comes with. But that's what puts her over the top, or her accessories included with this figure, and the fact that it is just a beautiful, beautiful figure. And I kind of think maybe they did it because you're going to have your driver in your Hiss, right, most of the time, especially if you've got them buckled in, because we're not going to be buckling and unbuckling that seat belt. So you want a representation of that driver figure out and in the action, and that's kind of why they did this. So I like the fact that they decided to make it a female, to one, for some inclusion for another female character, and two, so we can see what that Hiss driver looks like more or less when he's out, when he's doing something. This is a great figure to me. If you've got it, you know what I'm talking about. It might not be your favorite in that set, but it is mine, and that is why she makes number 8 on my list. Number 7, Cobra Shadow Tracker. So, remember that time I said figures that probably wouldn't have been on my list? Well, this is one of them because this figure I almost passed on. I had absolutely no attachment to this character. I didn't know the Pursuit of Cobra line. I didn't collect it. And when this character was announced, I thought it was a new character. And I did not know it's kind of like Helix. I didn't realize that Helix was a character. So when they announced this guy, I'm like, okay, well, he sounds cool. And then they showed the renders for him. I was like, yeah, not my cup of tea. Then I thought he was a dreadnought. I was like, well, I got to get him. He's a dreadnought. And then he wasn't a dreadnought. And I was on the fence until the day the pre-order for him dropped, and once I saw pictures of him, I went ahead and ordered him because I was like, yeah, he does look pretty cool. I was thinking they were trying to go with some kind of predator thing, and of course, I mean, the dreadlocks, it kind of calls that back. But aside from that, that's really it. Like, he's not GI Joe version of Predator. So I went ahead and got him, and boy, am I glad I did. If you'd have told me when I saw this figure the first time, or the render, that this would be on my top 10 figure of the year list, I would have laughed my ass off at you. And then I got this in hand, and I would have eaten my words. He's not a figure for everybody. I understand that, but I do like characters that are a little out there and a little kind of strange, I guess. I like some of the oddball characters. But this guy, my issue with this guy was it just didn't make sense, right, for Cobra to have this guy in their ranks. But I guess he's somebody that if somebody's out on Cobra Island snooping, they're going to send him out, or maybe Cobra sends him into a an outpost or something to neutralize somebody before they can move in, or somebody escapes, so they send this guy after him. He has a place. If Crocmaster has a place, he has a place. His accessories are fantastic. I wish his hatchet had some more paint apps on it, but the knife is cool and the knife does. Only problem I've had with this dude is his bow was a little bit bent. I hadn't even tried to straighten it yet. Fantastic paint work on this figure with the bone daggers. I was hoping that maybe that, or this on his vest, or the flames on his boots, I was really hoping that glowed in the dark just for a cool touch. It does not, and it doesn't make sense for it to, for the character, as far as him existing, but for a figure, it would have been a icing on the cake if that had a glowed in the dark for me. I'm a sucker for glow in the dark stuff. I think that this is a good acquisition for your collection. Even if he's somebody you didn't have any interest in before, he just looks too cool. You got native vibe, you've got hunter vibe, you've got Craven the Hunter vibe, you've got King Ezekiel from Walking Dead vibe. So many things going on with this guy, and it's not really ripping any of them off. If it's a homage to other stuff, if anything, this is regular mask. That's my favorite. The Jaguar mask looks cool. Most people like the yellow see-through mask. That's actually my least favorite mask. I just like him with his regular one. He looks like, if you've ever played Dishonored, uh, Corvo, the main character, that's very reminiscent of Corvo's mask minus the steampunk, but the shape of it and the highlights, it's just a really, really good figure. So that is why he makes number 7 on my list for being a figure that's been out for 2 weeks that I did not even think I wanted to own. That's a pretty lofty goal, and he certainly achieved it. So that is Shadow Tracker, and he is number 7. Number 6, Snow Job. So Snow Job, I've seen higher on other folks' lists, and I've seen him not make lists at all. He's one of those that when I got him, it's like, well, that is definitely a top 10 figure right there. But the hits just kept on coming. They just keep on making great figures this year. But I always liked Snow Job. He's a practical joker. He's got a reputation for, liking to party. Likes to party, likes to drink. He's just, and I like snow troopers. I've always liked the snow guys and the aquatic guys. I've said that in the past. All of the more environmental guys have always been more fun for me, especially the water guys, because I grew up playing in a creek and taking these guys down to the creek by my house. So Snow Job was always a character that I liked. Again, one of my first figures as a kid, and they have taken that figure and completely blown it out of the water with him. Again, he is a deluxe figure, and he's worth all of it. You know, you don't feel gypped with him being a deluxe figure. I mean, look at what you get, and the onboard storage on this figure, everything he has will store on that backpack. Everything he's got except for like the extra head and the hood, obviously, for his coat. Everything else stores on that backpack, and he actually will stay upright with it on. Said for this purpose, I'm just grabbing him off my shelf. So that is how I have him on my shelf with the goggles down, like he's getting ready to creep up on some snow serpents and some Arctic bats. In my little winter display that I made. So fantastic figure. The sculpt on this dude, everything is spot on. The muted grays here on the cuffs and the pockets. Great head sculpt. He's got a couple different color uh, paint washes on his hair. It looks good. I don't know if it was meant to come out that way. I'm not sure the reasoning for it. It definitely stands out, and it can look kind of weird. But it could also, it's the way the light's hitting his hair. Whatever. It looks great. Nothing to complain about there. It's very noticeable. But aside from that, this is a fantastic figure. I can't imagine a Joe fan that lives somewhere that gets snow that would not want this figure. Even if you're an inbox collector, right, and you live somewhere where you're used to wearing all of this stuff, like he's almost a no brainer. And for me, where I live, like we don't get snow that often, but I've always liked the snow guys, and he was the best one. Him and Frostbite. So Snow Job is definitely worth picking up if you don't have him. If you've been waiting him, he's a Pulse exclusive, but he is 100% worth picking up and 100% worth the deluxe figure price. So go out and get Snow Job. If you don't have him, you will not regret it. And that's why he is number 6 on my list. Number 5, Range Viper. Another figure that I was on the fence about ordering initially because I hated the Real American Hero version of this figure. I do have it. It didn't get a lot of playtime. I never liked it. I thought the Real American Hero one looked goofy. Now, I was always in the camp that I knew the helmet was a helmet. Like, I didn't think he was some kind of weird experiment and his brain was exposed or anything. Like, I knew that was supposed to be a helmet. I just didn't understand why. I mean, I get the intimidation factor, I get it, but Range Viper is a wilderness trooper. This figure could not be further away from what I would think a wilderness trooper is, like a jungle viper, or, I mean, Rakondo on the Joes. Look at that versus this. That does not stop the fact that he is one of the best figures and best army builders we've seen yet. I'm very, very pleased with this figure. When I saw the update, that blue just absolutely pops with the red eyes and the gray brain helmet. Uh, if you run up on this guy, or most likely if this guy run up on you, what would you do? This figure is a slasher movie come to life. This is like somebody took a villain from a slasher movie and turned him into some sort of an army soldier. He's just fantastic. The paint apps are great on him. His accessories are perfect. He comes with the grenade launcher. He has the pickaxe, which is these are my two favorite things to pose him with. He has the LMG. Barrel was a little bit bent, but what are you gonna do? We gotta overlook bent weapons, I think, on reviewing figures because that's just how it is during this time. Hopefully they're getting away from that. They seem to be, but anyway, he comes with that LMG that we've seen several times. Several figures have come with it. He does have the pistol with the extended magazine. Just a fantastic looking figure. All of his highlights, all of his boots, his web gear, the detail in the backpack, the bandolier, even the scarf. This is like the only figure that I usually will leave the scarf on for Cobra. I don't like scarves and I don't like goggles, but it looks good on this figure, and it looks good on the Hiss version of this figure. But just the black with the blue, it's just a great figure. I'm very glad I got it. I know for a while he was quite hard to pick up, and he's still not super easy to pick up. This was one that I originally did pay impatient tax on and get him early, but then when he finally released and I ordered him, I just got more. So I only have two open, but I have more. That's how much I like this dude. He's a great figure. You're putting together a Cobra trooper with, or a trooper squadron with infantry or whatever. He could go with that squad and stand out. He's not going to completely blend with them. He's going to stand out a little bit, but you could theoretically see this guy going out with them, like as a reinforcement, like sending the big gun kind of figure. So if you don't have him, I would not pay, don't overpay for him. He is going a little higher than, above retail right now, but if you can get him for a few dollars over retail, he's definitely worth picking up. You won't regret it. He is this high on my list because of how impressed I was with him and the sculpt work on this figure. I like horror themed stuff. I like horror movies, and he is a horror theme, yet he is still a military character. If that makes sense, that's what he is. He's meant to be intimidating and definitely nails the look. So this is definitely gonna be on my list. So Range Viper makes number 5, and we will see who could possibly beat this sculpting. Number 4, Scrap Iron and Drone. So here's one where people might be looking at me and going, what in the hell? Scrap Iron is number 4 on your list. Yeah, this is who I really wanted to be my number 1. If you watched anything I've done or heard me talk about it, Scrap Iron is my favorite Cobra, next to Cobra Commander. I absolutely love Scrap Iron. He has his own shelf. It's a small shelf, but he has his own shelf in my display. And this is the main figure when was announced, that I wanted when I was not collecting classified. The announcement of this figure and some others that come up later were what actually got me into collecting the line when they finally made a Scrap Iron. If we were doing top 10 head sculpts of 2023, he would be number 1. If we were doing top head sculpts of all of classified, he would just barely be number 2 behind Major Blood. I don't think they'll ever beat that sculpt, but this is a very close second. I am very impressed with this figure. My only gripe with this figure at all is I wish the tracks moved on the drone. I understand why they don't. It just would have been a nice inclusion. I understand it probably would have made the price go up from 45 to 50 probably, but I would have paid 50. I'd have paid 75 to get this guy, honestly. And the only other thing is where they nail the face sculpts, I wish he had a little more definition around like his lips. I wish his lips were a little brighter. Like not they're not exactly, they're not flesh tone, but they're not very bright. I wish there would have been a little more definition. I guess shadowing Like if you're editing a picture, like the shadowing, I wish his face had a little more shadowing, like Blood seems to have. Of course, he comes with the anti-tank, the drone, the blast effects. He does have other blast effects I forgot to grab to put in here. He's got the explosion blast effects. Actually, I'm gonna grab those. All right, I got those on there now. It's probably a pretty bad edit, but yeah, I think you should get the sense of what you're getting with the set, and having those explosion blast effects is a very nice inclusion. We haven't got those with anything yet. These are the only like vehicle based blast effects that we've gotten yet. They look great. I mean, you've seen reviews; they're kind of gummy. Like not gummy, but you can push them. They're not hard plastic, but you can take those. You can put them in a display. You can do pictures and use those. They're a fantastic inclusion for the set. I wish I'd have been able to put him higher, but there's some other figures that I think are above him as far as detail work and accuracy. But I cannot go wrong with this figure. I love this figure. If you don't have it, he's on sale everywhere right now. Definitely pick this figure up, even if you don't care about him. The drone and the blast effects are fantastic, using in other scenes with other things. But he's a great figure. They really nailed the burn where he's obviously one of his things he was tinkering on blew up because he hates imperfection. So I guess he almost took himself out getting something right. I bet the next time it blew somebody else up. So there we go, y'all. There is my number 4 favorite character, and he made number 4. There is Scrap Iron. All right, we've made it all the way down through number 4, getting ready for number 3. But before we do number 3, I thought I would go ahead and show you my biggest disappointment for the year. It makes me sad. Most disappointing figure of 2023, Mole Rat. Yep, much as I hate to say it, y'all, this is a figure that I was highly looking forward to when they teased us with it because nobody knew what Mole Rat was. We had the name only reveal for forever, and we finally got to see a render, got to see a little bit about the figure. I don't remember. I think we actually saw the figure. I'm trying to remember, but I fell in love with it. I like like I said, the horror theme stuff. I can see this figure fitting into G.I. Joe. They're not necessarily zombies, they're being mutated by Dark Energon, and they're kind of they're more mutants than they are zombie. They're more the hills have eyes than Night of the Living Dead. So that right there on camera is why this figure is my biggest disappointment. I've got several of these. I keep trying to get good ones, and I keep having issues with the arms. Nobody's arm wants to stay on. I have 5 of these figures, and out of that 5, 3 of their arms fall off. It's some sort of a faulty design in that ball joint. I don't have the little cup in there because I'm going to lose it. It's in the accessory bag. Fantastic looking figure, both heads, the zombie, or not zombie, the mutated head and the gas mask head are both amazing sculpts, some great photography. They even have glow in the dark stuff, y'all. They glow in the dark, and there's no way I could put them on a top 10 list because of the design flaw issues with these and the quality of letting them go out the door. Some people have had better luck with them. Some people like this figure, some don't. I absolutely love it, but I cannot love the way that it is put together, and that's why it is my most disappointing figure. If I had no issues with my arms on these guys, it would have bumped somebody off of my top 10 list. I like it that much. But with those issues, it goes from being a top 10 figure to the most disappointing figure for me. And I'm sad about that, but it is what it is. So, biggest disappointment of 2023 for me, y'all, Mole Rat. Number 3, Craig Rock and Roll McConnell. Getting down to the nitty gritty, y'all. So, of course, this dude is going to be on here. He made it all the way to number 3. This is a figure. I did actually order this guy from Big Bad Toy Store when they had him early because I was waiting on the newer figures. This was the first wave of figures that I had pre ordered or had anticipation coming of new figures. Was this wave? This is the wave that I pre ordered when I first got into Classified, and he looked so good and they had him. I just couldn't wait on him. I went ahead and paid that impatience tax on him, and he was worth it. Didn't pay as much as ordering from overseas, but either way, there he is. There's Rock and Roll. Fantastic figure. He is probably head sculpt wise, for me, he is probably number 3 in all of Classified. I can't personally put him his head sculpt above Scrap Iron, just because I love Scrap Iron so much and what they did with the detail on the burn. But Rock and Roll, I mean, the shading of the hair and the beard, it's definitely some of the best sculpted hair that we've seen yet. And he has, he is a surfer. He plays guitar. He's kind of got that. He's kind of got that beach bum look to him, and that's how you want Rock and Roll. People have, kind of complained about not getting original classic Rock and Roll, and then people have complained about not getting the V2 Rock and Roll. People like him the best. I think this is a perfect mix. It updates the original figure. You've still got the bandolier. You've got the OD green pants, and it kind of updates him a little bit, kind of blending a little bit of the style of the V2. I don't really care about the twin little Gatling gun things from V2. Those were absolutely ridiculous. Give me the M60 any day. The tattoos, Rock and Roll. This dude in modern day, I think, would have tattoos. And then, of course, the cherry on top is they give him the devil horns and the interchangeable hands. He's got the other left hand, regular trigger finger hand, that also has the tattoo on the top of his hand. And then he has also has a fist hand. They couldn't really give us any more with this figure unless you're just a diehard purist for V1 or V2. I think this was a perfect compromise of those two. I think they probably will somewhere down the road. We'll end up getting both of those versions, maybe in the retro line. This one is fine for me. This is a perfect interpretation of Rock and Roll. He's got the extra ammo. He's got the hands. He's got the cool helmet. We've got different paint apps on it. Of course, he's got the hang 10 written on his helmet where he surfs. And he also has the walkie talkie where he can call in air support after he runs the barrel out of that M60. That walkie talkie is probably the most lost thing that this figure carries. I've lost one, and I've actually lost his regular hand. I was doing some pictures with him. But anyway, absolutely fantastic figure. The gun was a little bent when I got him, but everything from this line had something bent from this wave had something bent accessory wise. If you don't have Rock and Roll, what are you even doing? You definitely need him in your collection. He is one of the best looking figures made so far, and one of the best ways to update a original figure into modern times and still keep that original figure look. The sculpting alone's worth the price of admission on his head, but he comes with some accessories that perfectly define what this figure is and what he does. He's not missing anything. Only thing you possibly could have done with this figure is maybe give him a different head sculpt and the ball cap from V2, or the military cap from V2. But really, I don't need it, and you don't want to cover up that hair. I mean, dude's got perfect hair. So that is my pick for number three. It's Craig Rock and Roll McConnell. Again, when we get down to this level, these are pretty much must haves. So there is number three, y'all. Number two, Mutt and Junkyard. There they are, y'all. My most anticipated figure of the classified line, figures. Heavy Artillery Roadblock had already been made when I started collecting these guys, and Scrap Iron had been announced that got me collecting these guys. This was my next most anticipated and wanted figure in all of G.I. Joe, period. Right here. This is why I made my disclaimer, everything released within the calendar year of this year, because Mud and Junkyard have been. They've not been released by Pulse yet, but the set you see on the Lazy Susan, I did get from CMD store, but the set off to the left, Amazon dropped off at my house yesterday. So they are a 2023 release, technically. So let's take a look at them. This is a absolutely fantastic set. It's almost everything that I could have hoped for with Mutt and Junkyard. It's more in many ways. You see what all they come with. Mutt has tons of hands for giving Junkyard commands. You can see Junkyard's good boy face down here. Mutt's helmet with his other pair of goggles for the helmet. There's the pair just to go on his face. There is his other set of hands. Some people don't like the face sculpt. If you look at the Real American Hero Mutt, it is pretty much the same thing. Uh, there's no way that they couldn't have nailed that Mutt any better, and I would not have wanted a more updated version. Most of Mutt's gear from Real American Hero is still relevant. They've changed his vest and stuff up, and made that a little more modernized, but the look is exactly the same. I love the paint app with the hair on his arms and on his chest. Mutt is definitely a dude that would have that. Mutt's not a clean cut, pretty boy. Mutt's down in the trenches. I always kind of akin Mutt with like Clutch. They talk about how dirty and stuff Clutch is. Well, Mutt is just going to be covered in dog hair. He don't care about shaving. Junkyard don't care what he looks like. That's his pal. Y'all, the only reason Mud and Junkyard did not make my number one spot is for one substantial reason and one minor reason. And I will tell you what those are as soon as this thing spins back around real quick, because I want to point out this little piece right here. This little rubber looking piece. I took off his arm gauntlet and I wasn't sure where that come from. It goes in there. It's a piece that goes on the inside next to the wrist to kind of help hide the wrist. I didn't know what it was until I started putting everything up, and not when I took his wrist gauntlet off. That's what that goes to. If you're wondering, if you take yours off and you wonder what that piece is, that's where it goes. So the only reason Mud and Junkyard did not make my number one spot is Junkyard does have a loose front left joint on his front left paw, which is not that big a deal. Does not affect the posability of him, the playability, pictures, whatever you want to do. He's going to be able to do it. And at this point, most all of these figures have at least one joint that's kind of loose or weak. Not all, but most. And that's just going to kind of be par for the course with this line, I think. So that's not going to take away too much. If it was all floppy and I couldn't stand him up or pose him or whatever, that would be a big deal. Not really that big of an issue, but of course the other is Mac not coming with his Mac 11. That's a problem for me. if they're going to go out of their way to keep this as close to the original figure as they did, Mutt needs that Mac 11. I did buy the Marauder gun and grub set, but of course I don't have it up here because it did not actually come with the figure. It's an add-on. So that is a takeaway from this set for me. Obviously, this was an expensive set for them to manufacture. A lot of new parts, a lot of new sculpting, but I would rather them have tooled his proper Mac 11 and charged me $1 more or $2 more. Hell, I'd have paid it. We'd all paid it for that Mac 11. I like the M16. I love the green on it. Matches Junkyard, matches him. Same shade of green. It looks great, but Mutt is not an M16 guy. He's a close-up guy, and he needs that Mac 11. Other than that, you need this figure. You need this set. You need that Junkyard good boy face. Everybody needs that Junkyard good boy face. It's worth the price of admission alone. You need to go out and get Mutt and Junkyard, or if you've got them pre-ordered, wait with bated breath for them to get there. Just take your time getting them out of the tray. The stuff is in there good, y'all. I don't think we're going to see many more bent weapons other than what we're doing taking them out. There is number 2, Mutt and Junkyard. Honorable mentions. So here are my figures that did not make my top 10, but they were close contenders for me. I have the Snow Serpent. I have Chuckles. I have the Valkyrie set. I have the Arctic Bat. And of course, there in the middle, we have the Eel. These are all figures that I really, really wanted to include. Really hard to cut them out. Chuckles, not so much. I just love the figure. I love the character. I liked the original Chuckles. Chuckles was overpriced. Chuckles should have been a $34.99 figure at best, but of course we paid for the exclusivity that was not very exclusive for a long time. But I love the figure. I love that take on him. I think he looks great. He's fun. The Valkyries were some of my most anticipated figures because I love the clean, classic Cobra Trooper look, and we didn't have any females, and we needed some. So that's why they're on there for me. They're just fun figures, and they go with all of your classic look Cobra Troopers. So next up, going in that order, I have the Arctic Bat. This was a very highly anticipated figure for me. The only thing that I, per se, army build are bats and mole rats. And the bats, I have several of each. I think they look good together. And as I mentioned, I really like the Arctic themed characters. I love the look of that bat. I like them all, but I really, really like this repaint. He could not go in the top 10 because the way that they screwed his accessories up. We got a new bat head sculpt for him. We got the sniper rifle that is arguably completely unnecessary for a bat. I don't really care for that rifle, but the chainsaw attachment is what everybody was looking for this guy. And it's great as long as you have it plugged in, but if you put it anywhere else, it doesn't fit in the backpack up top and it falls out the bottom slot. He looks good on a shelf. And the other thing is that we were told when that figure was finally revealed that all of his hands and attachments would interchange with the other bat versions we've got, which would have been a hell of a combination, but they don't. We got a new backpack with it, and nothing fits in it. those hands, the pegs are too small. They don't fit in the bat hands. It was just the closest near miss, I guess. Closest miss for me was that figure. I really wanted to put it on here because I don't seem like a lot of people like it, but I do. But that accessory screw up knocked it right off. Then of course in the middle we've got the Cobra Eel, who I just reviewed because I had not opened this guy because I was kind of terrified I was going to get a derpy one. He's actually a fantastic figure. The only reason that he's not really in my spot, one of my spots, is there are just other figures that I can have more fun with than the eel. I love my Arctic guys. I love my aquatic guys. There's just only so much you can do with the eel. Fantastic as it looks, I'm going to do some pictures and stuff at some point with him and Torpedo. It's a great figure. All the controversy around it, though, with the way they screwed up the release on him, and just awesome as he looked, to me, the lack of playability. I mean, if you want him swimming, he's got to be on a stand, or you've got to be under him with a GoPro. So it's a great figure. They're all great figures. And then we have Snow Serpent. He looks good. He's a very solid figure, very nice looking figure. We were all worried he was going to have the pinhead head from the way it looked. It doesn't look too small to me, but of course they did that to fit the wolf cowl on him. I didn't get out all these guys' extra accessories because I clearly don't have room for it. So this is just how he is on my shelf. I don't care for the wolf head thing myself. If you've got a bunch of these guys, use that one and make him your squad leader for them. That's what I've seen a lot of people do. And whenever I get around to opening my other one, that's what I'll do with one of them. Nice sculpt. He misses the mark for me because I don't care about the wolf stuff. I do like they gave him the cartoon SMG, but where is the AK-47? These figures that should come with the AK-47 that don't really need it. Like I mentioned it with the fire team dude, the fire team officer. Don't get me started on that. But Snow Serpent is another one that should have also come with that gun. And I personally would have rather seen the more classic colors. I don't hate this one. There's not really anything to hate about it. I just like the other look better, the retro look. I don't care about the rocket launcher thing. I hate the rocket launcher. So to me, he's good. He's worth mentioning, but he's not on the list for me personally. He's sculpted well, but he's not great. He is worth the price of a deluxe figure. He comes with a lot of stuff. So there are my runners up, my honorable mentions. All very good figures, but not quite good enough. All right, y'all. I appreciate you hanging in with me this long. We've made it all the way to number one. If you've watched my stuff, you probably already know who it is because you haven't seen the figure yet. So let's go ahead and get to it, shall we? Number one, Dreadnought Ripper. Ripper is my number one figure of 2023. He is the best looking figure, in my opinion, that has come along all year. I desperately wanted Buzzer to be in this spot. Buzzer is my favorite Dreadnought. For me, unless their name starts with the letter Z, my Dreadnoughts go Buzzer, Ripper, Torch, Thrasher, Monkey Wrench, and then the rest of them. Those are my Dreadnoughts. Those few right there, and then the Z family. But Ripper here takes the cake. Buzzer was not a very good figure. I was very disappointed in Buzzer, and the more I do with Buzzer, the worse he gets. He's getting loose. All his joints are loose. chainsaw was bent, glasses. Ripper has none of those issues whatsoever. Everything about him, from the sculpting to the coming with the proper weapons. His jaws of life are now battery operated, as they are in real life. That has been reiterated over and over. Um, that's the modern day update on those jaws of life. He does not need that giant backpack, and I'm glad that he does not have that giant backpack. I'm not a big fan of the backpacks on most of these figures, and updating Ripper to 2023, he does not need it. They give him his correct gun, his correct rifle with the blade on it. We got the paint app on the blade. He's got his trench knife, which is removable and the coolest knife probably in all of the classified line. They did give him this gun. People don't like the pistol. I don't really care for the pistol either, but you know what? It's not the same pistol that we keep complaining about them using with figures. It's new. And leave it in the holster if you don't like it. I don't care for it, but it has a giant blade on it. It's Ripper. That's why they did that. It's perfect. It perfectly fits the character and who the character is. This is an excellent sculpt on this figure. The glasses come off. He's got the smiley face eye. They went out of their way to detail this guy. They updated his shirt to a tank instead of the belly shirt. He's got tattoos, as you know, Dreadnoks would, all over him. I cannot say enough good things about this figure. It's the only figure I've given a perfect score to that I have done reviews on my channel so far. He got a higher score than I gave Mud and Junkyard, simply because he perfectly conveys everything he needs to be a Dreadnought, to be a modern update for the figure, and they give him the correct weapons that he should come with. If It would have been a real close battle between him and Mutt and Junkyard if Mutt had come with that Mac 11. But Ripper is my number one figure for 2023. If you are a Dreadnought fan, he's a must-have. If you just like figures that are really sculpted well and you're only collecting the more art-like figures of the line with how well they're sculpted, you need Ripper. Your Dreadnoks won't be complete without him, for sure. So that's it, y'all. That is my number one figure of the year. This is Ripper. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Got one little thing I'm going to say after we get through looking at Ripper real quick. Just the other figures that I was not able to get to consider for my list. So once again, you guys, if you like it, give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button. And now let's talk just a little bit about who did not have a chance to make the cut. Or as Flint would say, man, that was kind of exhausting, but it was fun. I appreciate you guys sitting through all of that. I know I get long-winded and I like to tell stories and stuff, but that's just the way I do my stuff. So this is the list that I used to narrow down my figures of the year. And all of these are figures that I considered for it. This isn't all the releases. This was me looking at the list of releases and saying, okay, who would I consider for this? And I wrote them down. And I went through all of the releases and I wrote down those figures that I thought were really great figures for whatever reason. And then I had to narrow that list down to 10, and then I ordered them. Probably standard operating procedure, but this is the first time I've done one of those. So there's a lot of thinking cap about it, thinking about after you've had a figure and are they still fun? Are they still joints still tight? Did something else come out that is honestly a better sculpt? So that was the case on some of them. So the stuff that I did not have to review. So the figure that I mentioned was the Walmart Retro Card Snake Eyes. That is in a lot of people's top 10 for this year. It may have been in mine. I have it. I don't have it open. It's not a figure I need to open. I have the Alpha Commando Snake Eyes, and for me, that one is really close enough to the Commando Snake Eyes, which is my Snake Eyes. I like uh, that retro card Snake Eyes. I love that one. That's my Snake Eyes. But the Alpha was the closest we've really had to it, and he come with all the other weapons, and he come with timber. I don't need to open that Snake Eyes. So he might have made it on the list. I don't think so because I don't think he was a good enough figure for me personally to knock any of the others off. Not that he's not a good figure, but I'm not a Snake Eyes fan. I like him, but I'm not a fanboy. Honestly, there's only three other versions of Snake Eyes I ever need. That is the Vietnam Snake Eyes, preferably in a 3-pack with Stalker and Storm Shadow. I would like to have a classified, the blue cartoon version, like the Super 7, but classified. And I would like to see a Snake Eyes unmasked with his face as they showed it in whatever issue that was of the comic, 93, I think, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. That version maybe in his army greens, his dress greens, and then give an alternate head sculpt that is what his face looks like, which is, of course, the rubber mask in the comic. That's the only other versions of Snake Eyes I ever need, so I didn't need to open that one. I also do not have the retro card Crimson Guard open because I have the regular Crimson Guard open and I have the Python Crimson Guard, and I like both of them better. I like the black face mask. I so I already know I don't like that figure, and a Crimson Guard would not have made this list this year. I do not have retro Zartan, and I don't have retro Storm Shadow, and I know that one was on a lot of people's lists. And I would like to get both of those. They just haven't been priorities. I've had the chance to order them. I just haven't. I'll get them someday. I like that version of Zartan and that version of Storm Shadow. So one day I'll get them, but I do not think for me, I don't think either one of those figures would have made the list either because I'm just not super pro ninja. I don't think I would have put a Storm Shadow figure on this list when there were other new figures that I think are probably better. And then the other one that comes to mind is the Crimson Strike Team. I have it. I have not opened it because I got it for the collection. I got it because it was an exclusive. I do like that Baroness. I don't like it enough to open that setup just for her. I don't really, not a big Crimson Strike Team, Crimson, whatever they're doing fan. So I really didn't want to open the set just for her. She's not made anybody else's list that I have seen that I've watched personally. I think she made runner up. So I was not going to open her just to review her and leave Tomax and Zaymot still in the package. I've got Baroness. I have the retro card Baroness back here now. I didn't have a Baroness for a long time, but I finally got that one, and she's in there. I don't need to open the other one. So I think that's everything. The ones that I don't have and wasn't able to actually review or look at, they wouldn't have made my list anyway. They just weren't unique enough, and they weren't new characters, whatever. So, guys, that is it. It's been long, but that's how they go. So, once again, this is Down South 77, and this has been 3-Star Draw. Thank you guys for stopping by and listening to all this mess.